All right, let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's do this again. So glad you're here and joining us today for the fifth session of our series of What's New in Solid Edge ST8. This is Draft and Multiple Bill of Material. My name is Dale Duell. I'm an application engineer here at Swoosh, sitting in for Diana today, and I'll be your moderator. Just a bit about Swoosh. We are a leading provider and partner of Siemens PLM software for over 10 years. Our team is dedicated in providing you the best support and software, including NX, Teamcenter, and Solid Edge, necessary to accelerate productivity in your processes. Also, we pride ourselves in delivering process-based training solutions tailored to fit your company's needs. With our educational training services, our goal is to make you a leader in your field while staying ahead of the competition. Our presenter today is application engineer Dylan Malik. With a career spanning almost 2 decades, he's seen the growth and changes in CAD design and has acquired a vast knowledge in topics including sheet metal, structural design, surface, rendering, and animation. Dylan is a certified Solid Edge professional and training instructor with a great working knowledge of the program tool. Our agenda for the day is on draft and multiple bill of material. Following a brief history of the topic, Dylan will be providing a demonstration within Solid Edge ST8. We will then end with our Q&A session, so if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to add these into the question box located in your GoToWebinar control panel. Both Dylan and I will have your questions answered following the demonstrations. Well, all right, Dylan, take it away.
All right, thank you, Dale. So first thing we're going to look at, let me go ahead and toggle over to Solid Edge here, is I'm going to bring up the draft, and I'm going to go to some of my recently, you notice we have a little pinned option up here. So a file that we use quite frequently, go ahead and pin them so they stay in your recently used location. Just makes it easy to access. All right, so some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today is new in ST8. Some of the things I'm going to show were in ST7. I just want to recover them just in case somebody missed out on some of the new stuff came out last release. So the first thing let's look at is dimension styles, or actually dimensions, how to modify them. You know, in previous days when you wanted to change the length of leader lines or arrow types, you'd had to go to the properties, you had to go to right click, go to properties, make the changes. But now you notice when I click a dimension, we get all these little glyphs that pop up all over it. All right, so first thing we can notice is you get the glyphs at the end of the leaders that allows you to kind of position the lines. You notice you get this little dash line that kind of tells you exactly where you're positioned from in case you want to move your dimension to another location. It gives you a nice little feedback on exactly which edge it's actually attached to. As for the 61.12, you notice it's kind of off-center. All right, so as soon as I grab the middle glyph and I get a little plus mark, and as I start dragging, you'll notice in the middle of my profile here, I have a big plus mark. That's dictating where the center mark is. As I get close to it, the dimension will kind of want to snap to the center of my part. So it's kind of intuitive the way it will snap. And of course, changing the lengths of leader lines is now just kind of dragging the little glyph and spreading them out. Let's move this up. All right, so down in the next series of dimensions, you notice this was retrieved dimensions from a part geometry. So you notice as I drag one dimension, a couple of these move together. All right, so these are tied together. This one's kind of just a standalone. Let's go ahead and position this one. What we want to do is let's go ahead and tie all these dimensions together. This was not new in 8. This has been around for a while, but it allows you, it's a quick, easy way to arrange dimensions and go ahead and line them up how you want. So I'm going to go ahead and specify the distance. Let's go with 0.7 and just window my series of dimensions. I could window every single dimension on the page at one time and do it, but I just like doing a small series at a time. That way you notice now that these all move together. Just with a single mouse click, I can tie these together. If you ever want to disassociate these, just a quick right click and say, either if you just want to split one of the features out of that set, you can, or if you want to break the entire alignment set so they all move independent again, you can do that. All right, so that is, again, not necessarily new in 7, but, or excuse me, not new in 8, but useful tip. All right, so diameter dimensions. All right, we got 2 little glyphs on here. All right, so the glyph over the actual text lets you move the actual dimension wherever you want. And the leader line to the right of the leader is the ability to kind of reposition it anywhere you want. So let's say I want to go ahead and let's pop this out here. And again, you can just kind of change the position of this by dragging that particular location. All right, something else to note. In previous versions, if you notice where my cursor is, that little location that's attached to that edge. All right, these are all coming from the same location, which typically you would do. But in previous versions, what would happen is if you start dragging your dimension leader, sometimes it would leave the leaders from the previous dimension, and you would still see a line here. So you would kind of get, I'm going to do a little mouse click here, and you would kind of get this scenario where you would have two separate line items. So now you notice the glyph is here for this dimension, and the glyph is here for this dimension. So that was kind of the way it used to be. But you don't have to worry about that anymore. A single line, single glyph location will drive every single dimension connection point. Okay, let me go ahead and move this dimension out. Same thing with this one. But I want to go ahead and give it some space in the middle to pull the dimensions, or excuse me, pull the arrows to the outside. All right, in the previous version of Solid Edge, I guess ST8 and before, you would have to kind of zoom up, grab the arrow, and kind of just click and try to drag to the outside. Sometimes if you have a bunch of stuff around there, it's a little hard to do. But now, all you have to do is left click on that little glyph, and you notice we have a flip terminator button, or excuse me, flip terminator option. As soon as I do that, your arrows go to the outside, and if you want to move them back, you can again just click it and flip them to the inside. So that little glyph there also gives you some other kind of feedback. And this is predominantly I've seen be useful for the guys who do pressure vessels. They kind of dimension off a single leader line, and they usually have a single arrow dimensioning to that. And you would always have to go in, right-click, go to Properties, go to the second leader dimension, hide it, etc. Now, you can, again, just like that little glyph, if I click that, notice we got the Show Projection Line and Dimension Line. So I can come over here and say, turn off my dimension leader. If I click it, we still got the glyphs there. I can, you know what, I can actually say, Show Projection Line, Show Dimension Line. I can turn all that off, and then I just get a single type dimension arrow, which is kind of a real fast way to do that. So again, just left-clicking, showing dimension, turns it off, and then you can kind of position this anywhere you want, and that's a very useful tool. Another thing that we can also do, picking this particular glyph, is terminator type. You know, so we got a whole list here. Again, this was something you always have to go to Properties to handle. But now let's go put a couple open arrows on here. So this is kind of old AutoCAD style look. So we'll just say open arrows. You know, they could be completely different. Doesn't have to be the same. Let's go with a dot. There we go. So changing dimension leaders and arrows, very simple now. Okay. Second page on annotations. Of course, we obviously do annotation Solid Edge where we can put our tolerances and call-outs. We have a surface finish here. How all the weld symbols and call-outs like these work now. Of course, you got the center glyph, which kind of moves the jump part or the profile around. You have this one. As you notice, as soon as I pick that glyph, we get this little 45-degree thing, and I'll show you here again what it actually does. I'm going to position that. Let's go ahead and stretch that out, and of course, we can also stretch and leave that. Which again, you just have to go right-click Properties and go ahead and define that. All right, speaking of the little 45-degree glyph, this one that kind of pops in here, we're going to use that to position the actual call-out note here. The little dot here will let you move the profile from one side to the other. And what I'm talking about is I drag this around. You notice we got this big asterisk looking thing. And these are snapped to 45-degree increments. So if you ever want to position your profile 45 degrees, you can do that. So let's go ahead and position it there. Let's move it back. I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to add a jog to this. So adding jogs is the same way as it was in previous versions. But now, as I move my profile around, you notice as soon as I do that, we get that little asterisks for 45-degree locations around my leader here. All right, and what's unusual about that is if I actually grab the jog, you notice we get them on either side of the dimension. So if I maybe want to go 45 in one direction and maybe straight up and down in the other. So that is how we can position our leaders using that little glyph. Very nice tool. Something they have also added is the ability to manipulate your properties. You kind of have to know the specific syntax for whole callouts, etc. But now they've kind of simplified that quite a bit. So for example, maybe I want to put a dual unit for my 30. So that's a whole size. So if I pick whole size, we now have a button called Format. When I fire that off, we get a lot of different options here. So maybe I want to make this 30 be dual units. So I have inches and millimeters and inches through there. So I'll say OK. So there we get the stacked 30 millimeters, 1.18 inches. You know what? We can also change the actual dimension decimal place. So on the bolt size, on the 56, let's go ahead and format that. Let's change the round off. Right now it's 2 decimal places. Let's bump that out to 4 decimal places. So that's how easy it is to go ahead and set your dimension parameters. Because usually that's derived from the properties, and all dimensions have the same. This is just a really quick way to change individual callout properties without having to go change all your settings. Okay. One up here. Let's go ahead and continue on. Let you know what we're going to do with this whole size is, as soon as I select it, we're going to add a tolerance. All right, so now we have 5.3, and what we're going to do is give it a stack tolerance. We're going to give it a plus minus. We'll say 0.005 plus minus 0.003. So it's going to give you the over-under look. And we also have something for dimensional, or actually changes. So if you want to put a specific date tied to this, the intelligent date. So this is a created by date. So if I format that, before it used to kind of be a pain. I don't even know how you would actually do it before to change the date style without actually just typing it in. But now we give you multiple different types of dimension options. Let's go with the day, month, date, year, slave format. Say OK. So there's my Monday, October 12th. You know what? Let's also change the way it looks. So I'm going to go under the text case, and we're going to go ahead and change it because right now it's all lowercase. Let's make it all uppercase and say good to go. All right, so now you notice all my dimension format is uppercase and kind of laid out the exact way I want. So that is something you can do with properties. All right. This is something that very huge tool that I've been waiting for years. The ability to add multiple bill of materials to one draft sheet. Before, if you created multiple bill of materials, you'd always get the top level draft layout. But now we can actually pull bill of materials on individual items or subassemblies. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and grab this subassembly and change the configuration of what I want to see in there. And let's go ahead, and I'm going to just tell it to place it based on this motor module. So it highlights and knows what I'm on. Say OK. And make sure, again, I get my configuration right. There we go. And I'm just going to place it up here for now, just so I can actually zoom in. And so you can see that they are individual lists. They are not duplicates by any stretch. All right, so we got ARM 0069 and ARM 0015. I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way, get this positioned somewhere where you want it. All right, this little function is not necessarily new to 8, but a lot of people didn't know about it. It's a very useful tool. All right, so maybe you want to find an individual item or subassembly in here. How do you do it? By picking the list. All right, you can double click in it, and once it starts highlighting gray, in the upper left-hand corner, when you right-click, first off, you can just say show, you can say highlight. All right, so what does that do for you? So as I start picking over an item on my screen, you notice it actually highlights in red and displays which item you're picking, so you know which part number. But a lot of times it's not a descriptive name, so this is an easy way to find which part you're looking at. Something else we have, if I turn on thumbnails. All right, this gives you a thumbnail clip of the actual part that you're hovering over in the list, and that gives you graphic feedback. I like that. So I like the ability to see the parts. So again, that's just a simple right-click up here, and if you just really wanted the properties of parts too. So if you want to know information, release date, etc. So when you do that, you can come over here and define how you want your properties to be displayed. But typically, I just want to go ahead and just look at the thumbnails and highlight the parts. So just a useful tool. And it's not on by default. So again, you double click it when the gray list turns gray. You can right click up here and turn these on. All right. Properties and intelligent text boxes. All right, so that's what we're going to show here. We've had this for a while. The ability to put your call outs and your GD&T, and they were typically tied together. But you notice BB, everything's good. But in the text boxes, we didn't really have the ability to make a note that was intelligent until now. So if I'd taken this text note and kind of pick where I want, I'm going to go ahead and put this note right here. And how do we do that is this little button called Insert Character. All right, I'm going to go ahead and set it in a property text. All right, so again, like I just mentioned, property text, here's where you can insert property text, just like you populate your title blocks and build materials. Don't want to use property text on this one. I want to actually use call out. So here is the call out that I just actually created. So if I double click that, it puts it down here in the list, say OK, and hit OK. Now you notice surface B has blah, blah, blah. So if I come back here and say, you know what, let's make this actual C, OK. So now you notice the call out changes here, and the call out actually changes in my text block. All right, so that's just a real fast way to make your text blocks intelligent. Because again, you make a change, text block was dumb, somebody forgot to change the text blocks, you get release print is incorrect. Never good to happen. This way it kind of alleviates that. Something else that's been remedied is notes. Usually there's a whole series of notes that people create, and let's do the same thing for this, except we're going to make an intelligent list. All right, so what we call this is technical requirements. So let's put a few technical, I'm just going to put 2 or 3 in here. Let's say glue all parts, insert, deburr all sharp edges, and that's good enough for now. All right, you notice we can actually change the layout. If we want to do Roman numerals or ABC in our list, we can do that. But I'm just going to leave it as a 1, 2, 3 list and say OK, and just place it like a note block. All right, so now we're going to do a call out to reference this note block. So I'm going to just do a call out, kind of similar to what I did a while ago, reference text. Instead of the CC, we're actually come down here and say, you know what, I want to pull it from my technical requirements, which I just created. And I'm going to pull a list on there. I'm going to say deburr all sharp edges, say OK. And put that, oh, forgot to do something there. All right. Oops. C note. There we go. All right, so it tells us to C note 2 to kind of deburr all our sharp edges. Let's say somebody comes back and adds another technical requirement. Let's see, whatever. Insert. So we now have 3. And let's say, you know what, deburr, we should deburr before we glue them together. So let's move that up to the top. So I'm going to move this up in the list. So we're going to deburr, glue, and do whatever after that. Say OK. And you notice what happens here. C note 1 now, which was C note 2 a while ago. So your notes are going to be intelligent as well as your call outs. So all your lists can be tied together. No need to worry about, did all the changes get made? Because they will. Another thing with call outs that they have changed, I'm going to go ahead and do a whole call out. Not a huge one, but in the previous days, when you snap to a hole using a whole call out, the dimension leader always went to the inside diameter. But now you can actually pick the OD of the thread, and it will still give you the correct information. Before, it used to kind of give you exclamation points or question marks saying you didn't understand. So now it understands picking an outside thread will give you the correct call out. Last couple draft sheets here. This is necessarily not new to 8, but it's a very nice enhancement that came out in 7. All right, I used to do sheet metal fabrication. I did a lot of this where you had to call out all the hole locations. Well, you can do it with the whole table, or now we have the ability to create automatic coordinate dimensions. So I have it preset to say find all circles. You can do endpoints, midpoints, etc. I just want to say find the circles. So pick the profile that I want to find my circles with, accept it, and all I got to do is tell it where my 0 point is. Usually the center line is where I work from, so I'm just going to say, here is my center point. And I'm not extracting this, I'm actually creating this. So the part itself didn't have any dimensions, but I can actually retrieve these styles. Again, we need to make a jog here, so just a quick, simple jog on that leader. And for some reason, there it goes. There's my jog. So let's go ahead and spread this out a little bit and do the same thing. That 582 is a little close to there, so I'm going to add a jog here. And position that. Notice the little line that shows you that your text is still lined up, so if you change the location of it, the text will all stay together. And let me just pull the side profile out. I'm going to do the exact same step, except I'm going to use that as a 0 point, and no need to add any jogs there. So that looks pretty good. And the last thing to cover under frame, this again came out in ST8. This was a huge time saver because I used to do a lot of frame components like this, and you always had to make individual details of the sticks. All right, now you have the ability to actually pull those in to your view. So I'm just going to view wizard, go find my frame, move that out of the way so you can see what I'm picking here. So it highlights the entire frame. You know what? I want to go and find one of these components individually so I can expand that frame component out. And there you go. I want to go ahead and do one of these tubes at the top. So I'll just say OK. And of course, it brings it in the same orientation that it was created in, but I don't want to do that. I want to go ahead and just change my orientation. Let's just say front view and right side view. Scale that up a little bit. And go ahead and just drop that right there. And of course, your dimension values. Now you can go ahead and detail out all and put all your little pertinent information to create frame components. Very simple process. You notice something else. If I tie a balloon to this, let's see, balloons, and I pick that, you notice it says that's item 4, and guess what? It corresponds with actual item 4 where my frame is. So you can actually put call out or put a balloon so you know which item detail you're looking at in the bill of material. That's and that is it, Dale. So back to you.
Super. Great. Hey, we do have a few questions. We actually have 3. So the first question is there a way to change multiple dimension types at the same time?
Dimension type. Yes. Well, yes. There's a couple different ways, actually, if I understand right. You can always go, if you right-click on a property, you're changing an individual. But if you come up here to a button called Styles, there's one under Sketching, Style. You know what? Command Finder. Type in Style. There we go. So there is, there's a style right there. So when I pick Style, it brings up, I can change dimensions. I go to Modify. So this is kind of like a global change. And we'll change so if you want to go from maybe 2 decimal places to 3 decimal places, it'll change them all. But maybe if you have something to the scenario where it's a typical dimension and you have maybe a prefix like this where you can say typical. We have something called prefix and style copy attributes. So you can say prefix and type, prefix and style, etc. You can say, you know what, I just want to copy that prefix and put it in multiple places. So that way, it's a real fast way to change your dimensions. You know, you could obviously change it from a decimal to fraction the same way using the prefix or the copy attribute button. So that's a couple different ways to do it.
Cool. The second thing is, does Siemens still have the free 2D version of Solid Edge?
Yes. I haven't looked for it in a while, but yeah, just do a Google search for Siemens free 2D, and it'll take you out, and you can actually download it. It looks exactly like you see right here. The only thing is you don't have access to create parts in assembly. But if you just want to do layouts or draw 2D geometry, you have a free 2D option to do that. It's a good replacement for AutoCAD. And again, it's free, so that's kind of hard price to beat.
And I'll add something on that, guys. If you need to see, you know, a complete tour of the Solid Edge 2D, we're more than happy to, you know, give that to you as well. I mean, it's a very, very powerful tool. You'll just take your AutoCAD, crack the disk, throw it out the window, and you'll be happy. So no problem. And then the third question that we have, and I'll go ahead and read this. Is it better to drive dimensions from the part, or possibly PMI, or retrieve them to put smart dimensions in the drawings? In other words, do we want to retrieve dimensions from the drawing, or do we want to talk about putting PMI on the model and then putting them in the drawing, or do we want to just dimension them in the drawing? What do we think is best?
You know, I think it's kind of a personal preference. You know, you're putting dimensions on the part regardless. You know, if you're creating a synchronous part, well, you're definitely putting dimensions on there. So those dimensions drive the geometry, you might as well retrieve those. And, or, you know, you can do a combination. Just put a few driving dimensions, retrieve those, and put your own dimensions in draft. Because, again, they're linked to the geometry. You know, we don't have the bidirectional. Our draft is a control document, so the part actually changes the draft. So wherever you put them, as long as they're there, it doesn't really matter. It's the same, you know, same speed to put dimensions here as it is to put them on the part.
Right. Hey, and the only thing I would add to that is it depends sometimes on how you design. Let's say you have a rectangle and you've got some sort of mounting hole an inch from the bottom and an inch from the top. And so no matter what size it is, the holes are an inch from the bottom and the top. As you do that, that may be fine for your dimensions, but for the guy that's out on the shop floor, he wants to see, well, it's an inch up, and then it's 26 inches or so between centers. And so sometimes, you know, you go, yeah, you know, how I'm designing and how they're measuring isn't quite the same, and you have to do it. The good news is you can retrieve all you want, blow away what you don't want, change what you do. You know, just to echo Dylan's sentiment there. All right. Well, just a quick note.
Oh, yeah. I'm going
oh, yeah, go ahead.
The service pack?
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm going to do that. The Solid Edge service packs ST7 and ST8 just came out. 7 came out a couple of days ago. 8 just came out today. So I know this is being recorded, but as of today, Wednesday, October the 14th, the latest packs are out. Go to GTAC, download those. You'll be good to go. Well, I think that's it for this afternoon. However, should any questions arise about today's topic, please feel free to contact us. If you have any questions on how to use Solid Edge, please feel free to contact Dylan or me, Dale, by phone. Or if you're looking to upgrade to ST8, Solid Edge ST8, please reach out to your Swoosh sales representative. If you don't have a Swoosh sales representative, one will be provided for you. That's no problem. So you can call me, Dale, or Diana when she comes back, and we'll be sure to direct you to a sales rep that can help you get what you need. Well, once again, thank you for attending Draft and Multiple Bill of Material. We hope you can join us for our final installment in our series, What's New, and that will be Wire Harness. It's next Wednesday, October 21st at 2 Central. If you haven't registered, be sure to do so in the email invitation that was sent or by going to the official series page. Well, that's it. Guys, thanks a lot. Guys and gals, thanks a lot, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.